I was holding my phone at the airport, staring at the last message my daughter sent me. "We'll all be there to greet you at the gate. Everyone misses you so much." I read it again, then again. I believed her. After all those lonely years in assisted living, after the long nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if my children still thought of me, after birthdays spent with nurses instead of family, after holidays passed with silence instead of laughter, I was finally coming home. I imagined their faces as I walked through that gate. My daughter's arms wrapped around me, my grandchildren running toward me, my son standing back, smiling the way he always used to. I imagined the noise, the hugs, the tears, the feeling of finally belonging again. But when the plane door opened and I stepped into the terminal, no one was there. No familiar faces, no waving hands, no tears, just strangers walking past me with strangers waiting for them. At first, I thought I was early. I stood near the gate with my small suitcase beside me. I smiled at every woman who passed, thinking maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. I kept checking my phone, expecting another message. Nothing. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The crowd from my flight disappeared one by one. Each person swallowed into the arms of someone who loved them. Except me, the airport became quieter. The same message still glowed on my screen. "We'll all be there to greet you." My hands started to shake. I tried calling my daughter. No answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. I told myself she was stuck in traffic. I told myself maybe they had gone to the wrong terminal. I told myself 100 little lies just to keep the panic from rising into my throat. But deep down, I felt it, that familiar sinking feeling. The one you feel when your heart already knows what your mind refuses to accept. I sat down on a cold metal bench with my suitcase between my feet. I watched families reunite. Children ran into waiting arms. Elderly couples found each other and leaned together like they had done for decades. Everyone found someone, except me, and as I sat there, surrounded by love that wasn't meant for me, I realized this homecoming was not going to be what I was promised. By the time this night was over, I would learn the truth about why no one came. I would learn what my daughter had been hiding. I would learn what they had decided about me while I was still alive. And I would learn that sometimes the people who swear they miss you the most are the same ones who are quietly preparing to erase you. Before I continue, I want to ask something of you. If you believe family still matters, if you believe parents still deserve dignity in their later years, and if you believe no one should ever be forgotten while they are still breathing, then please take a moment right now to like this story, subscribe to this channel, and keep these voices alive. Your support makes sure stories like mine are never ignored. Now, let me tell you what really happened after no one came to that gate. The assisted living bus dropped me off at the airport early that morning. I remember gripping my coat as I stepped out into the cold air. I was nervous in the way only a hopeful heart can be nervous. I hadn't traveled alone in years. My body felt weaker than it once was, but my heart felt full. At least it did then. On the plane, I kept my purse on my lap the whole time. I kept taking out the small photo of my children that I carried everywhere with me. It was an old picture. They were much younger in it, back when I still felt needed. I remember looking out the window as we flew over the clouds and thinking how strange it was that life could feel both light and heavy at the same time. When we landed, my heart began to beat faster. I smoothed my hair with shaking fingers. I checked my lipstick in the small mirror inside my purse. I sat up as straight as I could, as if my family might somehow see me before I even reached the gate. But they never did. After nearly an hour of waiting, my legs began to ache. My back stiffened. I picked up my phone again and left a message for my daughter. My voice cracked halfway through. "Honey, I'm at the gate. I'm here. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay." I waited. No call back. Finally, an airport employee walked up to me and gently asked if I needed assistance. I wanted to say, "Yes, I need my family." But instead, I said, "No, thank you. They're just running late." Even then, I was still protecting them. I sat there another 30 minutes before the truth settled into me like a cold fog. No one was coming. My daughter didn't answer. My son didn't answer. No one answered. I took a slow breath and stood up on shaking legs. I rolled my suitcase behind me and walked out into the busy terminal alone. Every step felt heavier than the last. I felt invisible, like a forgotten piece of old furniture left behind while everyone moved on with new lives. I called a cab myself. When I gave the driver my home address, he looked at me in the mirror and said, "Visiting family?" I nodded, but my voice wouldn't come out. The drive was quiet. Streetlights blurred past the window. Houses flashed by. Every mile brought me closer to the home I raised my children in. The same home my husband and I built our life inside. The same home I had not seen in years. I didn't know yet that when I reached that house, I wasn't just returning to a building. I was walking straight into a decision my children had already made without me, and I was about to learn how easily love can disappear when convenience takes its place. The taxi stopped in front of the house just as the sun was setting. I had imagined this moment 100 times during those long years away. I imagined headlights in the driveway, doors opening, familiar voices calling my name. I imagined my daughter running down the porch steps like she used to when her father came home from work. None of that happened. The house was dark. No porch light. No movement behind the curtains. Just the quiet outline of the place where I built my whole life. The driver stepped out and pulled my suitcase from the trunk. "You sure they're home, ma'am?" he asked gently. "I'm sure," I said, even though I wasn't. He handed me my bag and waited another second, as if he could feel the truth the way I did. Then he tipped his hat and drove off, leaving me standing alone at the end of my own driveway. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked toward the door. Each step felt like I was moving through water. Slow, heavy, uncertain. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. My fingers trembled as I reached for the spare key hidden under the flower pot. It was exactly where I had left it all those years ago. That small familiar detail almost broke me. So much had changed. Yet the key was still waiting. The door unlocked with a soft click. The house smelled different. Not bad, just different. New air freshener, new paint, new life that did not include me. The furniture had been moved. The old family photos were gone from the walls. New frames held new moments. Weddings I hadn't attended. Holidays I hadn't been invited to. Grandchildren growing up without my face in their memory. My suitcase rolled softly across the floor as I stepped inside. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoed back at me. The kitchen light was on. That's when I knew someone was home. I followed the glow and stopped just inside the doorway. My daughter stood at the counter with her back to me. My son sat at the table staring at his phone. They were both there. They just weren't at the airport. My daughter turned around. The look on her face told me everything before she ever said a word. Shock, fear, and something else. Guilt. "Oh," she said softly. You're here?" "I was supposed to be," I said. My son stood up slowly. "Mom, you weren't supposed to. I mean, we thought you were arriving tomorrow." I stared at him. "You sent the tickets. You gave me the time, the gate, everything." My daughter's hands shook as she reached for a glass of water. "Plans changed," she said quietly. I waited for the rest of the sentence. It never came. I looked at both of them. "So, you just decided not to come?" Silence. My daughter finally whispered, "We thought it would be easier." Easier. That word cut deeper than any insult could have. "My suitcase is still at the airport, then," I said. "You didn't even plan for me to arrive." My daughter's eyes filled with tears. "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about?" I asked calmly, even though my hands were shaking. My son looked at his phone and then back at me. "Mom, you've been gone a long time." "I never chose to leave," I said. "You chose to send me away." That truth landed hard in the room. My daughter finally said the words she had been hiding. "We had a family meeting." My heart dropped into my stomach. "A meeting," I repeated, "about me." She nodded. My son sighed. "We thought it would be better if you didn't move back into the house." I felt like the floor tilted under my feet. "I sold my room," he continued. "We needed the money and the space." The world felt distant, like I was underwater again. "And where was I supposed to sleep tonight?" I asked. My daughter swallowed. "We booked a small hotel nearby, just for a few days, until we figure things out." Figure things out. Like I was a piece of old furniture they weren't sure where to store. I turned slowly and looked around the kitchen. The table where I once helped them with homework. The counter where I packed their lunches. The stove where I cooked every birthday meal. None of it felt like mine anymore. "You promised you'd be at the gate," I said softly. My daughter's voice broke. "I know. I couldn't face you there." "Why?" I asked. She couldn't answer. My son spoke instead. "Because we didn't want you to come back at all." Those words stripped the air from my lungs. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there with my suitcase beside me and let the truth settle into my bones. They had planned their lives without me. They had prepared for my absence as if I belonged to the past, not the present, not the future. "I trusted you," I said quietly. "I trusted both of you." My daughter finally collapsed into tears. We were afraid you'd need us too much." That was the moment I understood. They weren't afraid for me. They were afraid of being responsible for me. Needing them had become a burden. Loving me had become an obligation. My son avoided my eyes. "You're strong, Mom. You've always been strong." "That doesn't mean I don't get tired," I said. The room fell silent again. Then my daughter said something I will never forget. "We thought it might be better if you just stayed where you were." In that instant, every lonely night in that facility suddenly made sense. The missed calls, the delayed visits, the forgotten holidays, they were already letting me go long before I ever boarded that plane. I picked up my suitcase slowly. "I'll take the hotel," I said. My daughter reached for me. "Mom." I stepped back. "I came here believing I was still your home," I said. "Now I see that I was wrong." I walked out of the kitchen without another word. The front door closed behind me with a soft sound. Not a slam, not anger, just quiet acceptance. And as I stood on the porch looking out into the dark street, I realized something that made my chest ache in a new way. I wasn't just unwanted at the airport. I was unwanted in the life I once created. The hotel room smelled like cleaning solution and old carpet, the kind of smell that tries too hard to feel fresh, but only reminds you how many strangers passed through before you. I set my suitcase beside the door and sat on the edge of the bed, without even turning on the lights. The silence pressed down on me. For years, I had imagined returning to laughter, to voices calling my name from another room, to the sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen and someone arguing over what to watch on television. Instead, I was alone with a lamp that hummed and a bed that wasn't mine. My phone lay on the table beside me. No calls, no messages. I took off my shoes slowly and stretched my aching feet. Every bone in my body felt heavier than it had that morning. Not from travel, from something deeper. That night, sleep did not come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the empty gate at the airport, the blank faces of strangers reuniting with their families, the way my daughter's face looked when she realized I had made it home on my own. She hadn't meant to hurt me, but she had. Sometime after midnight, my phone buzzed. I reached for it too quickly and nearly dropped it on the floor. A message from my daughter. "I'm sorry. I just need a little time." That was all it said. No explanation, no comfort, just distance wrapped in soft words. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. I only wanted to come home. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She never answered. The next morning, I woke before the alarm. My body had learned that when your heart is unsettled, rest does not stay long. I dressed slowly and made my way down to the small breakfast area. Families passed me in quiet groups. Children clutched cereal boxes. Parents balanced coffee cups and sleepy faces. No one looked at me. No one waited for me. I finished my meal alone and returned to my room. I sat on the bed and opened my purse, digging for the old photograph I always carried. It slipped from my fingers and landed face down on the carpet. As I bent to pick it up, something else fell out with it. An envelope, yellowed at the edges, my name written across the front. in handwriting I knew by heart, my husband's handwriting. My hands began to tremble as I lifted it. I had not seen this envelope in years. I didn't even remember how it had ended up in my purse. Maybe one of the nurses had packed it without asking. Maybe I had placed it there without realizing. Inside was a folded document. I sat back on the bed and slowly opened it. It was a copy of the deed to the house, my house, the one I was no longer welcome to sleep in. My eyes moved down the page. Owner, my name, sole ownership. My chest tightened. I turned the page. Attached was a will, not notarized yet, but written and signed by my husband. Everything he owned had been left to me. The house, the savings, the land. I sat frozen. They didn't just move me out for space. They didn't just need the money from my room. They believed the house already belonged to them. The pieces slid together, quietly and cruelly. The family meeting, the sudden urgency, the discomfort of confronting me at the airport. They weren't just afraid of caring for me. They were afraid of losing what they thought was already theirs. Suddenly, the hotel room felt colder. I folded the papers carefully and placed them back into the envelope. A knock came at the door just as I finished. It was my daughter. Her face looked tired. Her eyes were swollen. She held her purse tightly against her side. I thought maybe you'd want breakfast, she said softly. I stepped aside so she could come in. She looked around the small room and winced. This isn't right, she whispered. No, I said, it isn't. She sat down in the chair near the window. I remained standing. I didn't want it to happen like this. She said, then why did it? I asked. She hesitated. Because everyone was already decided. Everyone, I repeated, meaning you and your brother. She nodded. There was a long pause before I spoke again. What did you think would happen when I came back? I asked. She avoided my eyes. We thought you'd understand. Understand what? I asked gently. That my home is no longer mine? She whispered, we thought about converting it, selling later, dividing everything fairly. My heart pounded in my ears. Dividing what? I asked. The house, she answered. I reached for the envelope on the dresser and placed it gently between us. I think you should read this. She looked confused as she picked it up. Her hands began to shake as she read. Her lips parted slightly as her breath caught. This says the house is yours. Yes, I replied. It always has been. Her face drained of color. But we were told. She stopped herself. Told what? I asked. That Dad wanted us to have it someday. She whispered. He did, I said, but not like this, and not before I was gone. Her eyes filled with tears. We didn't know, she said. Mom, I swear we thought you had already signed things over. I never signed anything away. I said, the truth settled between us like a heavy curtain. So the meeting, I said slowly, was about dividing what you didn't even legally own. Her shoulders fell. I'm so sorry. I breathed out slowly. I believe you, I said, but believing you doesn't change what happened. She leaned forward. Come home tonight, please. I shook my head gently. Not yet. Why? She asked. Because I need to understand how easily I was almost erased from my own life. I replied. She cried then, not loud, just broken. I never wanted to hurt you, she sobbed. I know, I said quietly, but you still did. She left the room an hour later, quieter than she entered. And for the first time since arriving, I realized something else. They had already been planning their future without me, but they had also been planning it with my things. And I was no longer sure what part of me they truly missed. That afternoon passed in a blur. I stayed in the hotel room, watching shadows move across the wall as the sun shifted outside. My phone lay silent beside me. I didn't reach for it. I was afraid of what another message might bring. Afraid it might soften my resolve before the truth had fully settled inside me. Around early evening, the phone finally rang. It was my son. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom, he said quickly, his voice tight. We need to talk. We've been talking, I said quietly, just not honestly. There was a pause. You saw the papers, didn't you? Yes. Another pause, heavier this time. Dad promised us. He said the house would be ours one day. One day? I replied, not today, and not by pretending I no longer belong in it. He exhaled sharply. We didn't think you'd ever come back. Those words landed harder than any accusation. So you planned around my absence. I said, we planned around what we thought was reality. He answered, you were settled, safe. We thought you were comfortable. I was surviving. I said, there's a difference. He didn't answer. I'm coming to the house tonight. I told him. There was a nervous edge in his voice now. Why? Because I'm still alive, I said, and I deserve to stand inside my own walls. When I arrived at the house that evening, the lights were on in every room. My daughter opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red again. My son stood behind her, arms crossed tightly across his chest. His wife hovered in the background, uncertain. Everyone was waiting. The living room felt smaller than it used to. The couch where I once rocked my children to sleep was now covered in unfamiliar throw pillows. The shelves held new decorations, but the walls still carried the quiet echo of our past. We sat. No one knew where to begin. Finally, I spoke. You made a plan without me? I said, you made choices that pushed me out before I was ready to go. My son's jaw tightened. We thought you'd be better off where you were. You thought you'd be better off without me? I corrected. My daughter began to cry again. We were scared of losing everything, Mom. Everything or everyone? I asked. Silence. Then my son said the thing he had been holding back. We're drowning. The bills, the kids, the stress. We thought selling later would give us breathing room. So you tried to move me out quietly. I said, so the house would feel easier to claim. He didn't deny it. My daughter looked between us in horror. You never told me that part. His face fell, because I didn't want you to feel worse than you already did. The truth became clear then. This was no longer just a misunderstanding. It was pressure, desperation, fear mixed with entitlement, and I had become the obstacle in their minds instead of the mother who raised them. I didn't raise you to fear honesty. I said, and I didn't raise you to erase people when life feels heavy. My son's eyes finally met mine. They were full of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Shame. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I believe you, I said, but I won't pretend this didn't change things. We sat in that thick silence for a long time. The house seemed to listen. Finally, I stood up. I'm not here to punish anyone. I said, I'm here to belong again. My daughter stood with me. Then come home. Not to the hotel. Not to a spare room. Home. My son hesitated only a second before nodding. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in years. The mattress sagged, slightly in the middle. The ceiling fan made the same soft ticking sound it always had. I stared up at the ceiling in the dark and let myself cry quietly into the pillow, not from sorrow, from release. But peace did not arrive all at once. It came slowly in awkward breakfasts and careful conversations, in shared cups of coffee and silent gestures of respect, in apologies that did not fix the past, but softened its sharpest edges. Still, something was unfinished. One evening, my granddaughter climbed into my lap as I sat in the living room. She pressed her small hands against my cheeks and said, "You're home now, Grandma?" "Yes," I whispered. "I am." But even as I said it, I knew the true conclusion had not yet arrived, because forgiveness requires more than regret. It requires courage, and that courage was about to be tested one last time. The weeks that followed were not perfect. Healing never moves in a straight line. Some days felt peaceful and full of quiet laughter. Other days carried tension that hung in the air like unsaid words waiting for courage to find them. I learned again how my children lived now. Their routines, their worries, the stress they carried in their eyes even when they smiled. And slowly they learned me again too. Not the strong mother who held everything together without ever needing help, but the older version of me, the one who tired more easily, the one who needed company in the evenings, the one who still loved just as fiercely. One evening, my son knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom," he said softly when I opened it, "can we talk?" We sat at the edge of the bed, the same bed where I once nursed him through fevers, the same bed where I prayed for his future long before he knew what the word future meant. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "about what we did, about what we almost did." I waited. "I think somewhere along the way," he continued, "we stopped seeing you as our mother and started seeing you as a problem we didn't know how to solve." Those words hurt to hear, but they were honest. I forgot that before you were ever old, he said, you were everything that kept us alive, everything that taught us how to survive. Tears filled his eyes before mine. I'm ashamed of what I became when I was afraid. I reached for his hand. Fear makes strangers out of people we love. I said, but it doesn't have to keep us strangers forever. That night at the airport, he said, his voice shaking, we were arguing in the parking lot about who would have to pick you up. That truth struck me harder than anything he could have said. I lost, he whispered, so I didn't go in. I closed my eyes. I stood at that gate alone for almost an hour. I said quietly, "I know," he whispered, "and I will carry that shame for the rest of my life." Perhaps forgiveness arrived in that moment without either of us realizing it. Not perfect forgiveness, but real forgiveness, the kind that stays. From that day on, things began to shift. Slowly, gently. My daughter stopped asking me how long I planned to stay. One morning, she simply moved my favorite chair closer to the window. Another day, she asked me where I used to keep the recipes when I cooked for holidays. One evening, she said, "We were wrong. You were never supposed to be the problem." And for the first time, I truly felt welcome again. Months passed. Seasons changed. The house grew quieter in ways that felt peaceful instead of lonely. My grandchildren learned to bring me small treasures from the yard: a leaf, a smooth stone, a flower with a broken stem held carefully in tiny hands. And every night before bed, one of them always came to kiss my cheek. "You're really staying?" my youngest granddaughter whispered once. "Yes," I told her, "I'm really staying." Years later, when my hands became shakier and the stairs became steeper, my daughter moved into the room beside mine. She said she wanted to be close in case I needed her in the night. And I did. Not always for help. Sometimes just to know someone was there. One evening, long after the children were asleep, we sat together in the quiet living room. "I almost lost you," she said softly. "Yes," I replied, "but not because of distance, because of fear." She nodded slowly. "I don't want fear to make decisions for us anymore." "Then don't let it," I said. "Let love be louder." We sat in silence, the kind of silence that doesn't ache, the kind that heals. If I leave you with anything from this story, let it be this: people don't stop needing love just because their hair turns gray. Parents don't stop needing dignity just because their hands tremble. And families don't fall apart because of anger as often as they do because of fear. But fear does not get the final word. Love does. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you need to call, someone you miss, or someone you may have taken for granted, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it tonight, and subscribe so more stories like this can find their way into hearts that are still hoping, because no one should have to stand at the gate waiting alone.